Okay, get this. We're going deep on Maria's story this time.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, talk about beating the odds. Childhood poverty becomes a teacher, and it all comes down to, like, this incredible drive and a scholarship that changed everything.
It really shows how powerful resilience can be. I mean, when you combine that with the right support system, it's amazing what people can achieve.
Exactly. So picture this tiny village. Maria's growing up there with her mom, who's working like nonstop to provide for her and two younger brothers.
Wow. Single mom, 3 kids. I can only imagine the struggles.
They were constantly scraping by. But even as a little kid, Maria was different. She had this fire in her, this ambition to build a better life, not just for herself, but for her whole family.
That kind of awareness at a young age is remarkable. It speaks volumes, really, about that inner drive some people have. It's what fuels those amazing success stories.
Right. And her dream was to become a teacher, to lift up her community through education.
A noble goal.
Mm.
But I'm guessing, given their financial situation, it felt almost impossible,
Right.
right?
Totally. You'd have that classic underdog feel, like, those movie setups where you're rooting for the character to beat impossible odds.
It's interesting, though, because Maria's story, while extraordinary, isn't unique. Researchers have actually found that this grit, this sheer determination, is often a stronger predictor of success than talent or privilege.
Really?
Yeah, time and time again, you see individuals who rise above the most difficult circumstances, and it's that unwavering commitment that sets them apart.
So true. And Maria wasn't just dreaming. She was crushing it in school. But it wasn't just about grades, right? She had this drive, this focus on changing her future.
And then enter Mrs. Thompson, the high school guidance counselor who changed the game.
The classic mentor figure, right?
Absolutely. She recognized Maria's potential and went beyond just the practical stuff. Yeah, she helped with scholarship applications and college advice, but it was more than that.
Yeah, Mrs. Thompson believed in her.
She saw Maria, not just her circumstances, and that's crucial, especially for students facing so many systemic barriers.
It makes you think about all the things most of us take for granted, like having access to good schools, resources at home, even just navigating the whole college application process. It's a system that isn't designed for everyone, is it?
Not at all. And that's where mentors step in. They can guide, encourage, open doors that might otherwise remain closed.
It's like they become a lifeline. There's actual research backing that up, isn't there? I read about studies showing how impactful mentorship can be, especially for students from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Oh, absolutely. There's a growing body of research on this. Mentorship programs can actually boost academic performance, college enrollment rates, even long-term career success. It's about leveling the playing field and making sure everyone has a real shot.
So then comes the moment that changes everything. Maria receives a letter. It's a full scholarship to a top-tier university.
Wow.
Imagine that wave of emotion. Relief, excitement, maybe a touch of disbelief.
Totally. It's more than just financial, too, right?
Way more. It's validation. A sign that all that hard work paid off.
It can totally shift your self-perception. Not just about finances, but being seen, being recognized for your abilities. It's incredibly powerful.
But I'm guessing Maria's journey wasn't all smooth sailing from there, was it? I mean, stepping onto a university campus, especially one with a lot of wealth and privilege, it must have been daunting. Did she ever talk about feeling out of place?
She did. She often described navigating two worlds, her upbringing, her roots, and this new environment full of opportunity, but also social and cultural challenges. It's a common experience for first-generation college students and those from low-income backgrounds, this feeling of having to constantly adapt, to code switch, all while carrying the weight of expectation and maybe even battling imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like that feeling of not belonging, doubting your abilities, even when you're achieving great things. That nagging voice saying you're not good enough, even when you are.
I can see how that would be a huge hurdle.
It was. And this part of Maria's story is crucial because it highlights the hidden challenges of upward mobility. That scholarship opened a door, but it didn't magically erase the systemic barriers or the internal struggles.
So we were talking about Maria feeling out of place at college at times. It makes you wonder, what were some of the everyday struggles she faced? I mean, even with the scholarship, things couldn't have been easy.
You're absolutely right. Even though tuition was covered, she still had living expenses, textbooks, all the costs that come with being a student. She actually spoke a lot about the pressure to succeed, not just for herself, but for all the people who'd been there for her along the way.
It's like carrying the weight of all those hopes and dreams. It's got to be a lot to handle, especially for someone so young in a brand new environment.
Definitely adds a layer of complexity, and it highlights a key point. That financial strain, it doesn't just vanish when you get a scholarship. So many students, especially those from low-income backgrounds, face those financial challenges throughout college.
Did she end up working while she was in school?
She did. Marita took on part-time jobs all through college, juggling multiple commitments to make ends meet. And this part of her story, it's incredibly inspiring. It really shows her resilience.
We talked about that a bit earlier, but could you give us some concrete examples of how that resilience played out in her daily life?
Absolutely. Think about it. Working, studying, dealing with financial stress, navigating a whole new social scene, and she still excelled academically, not just surviving, thriving. That's resilience in action.
Like she turned those challenges into fuel. Instead of letting them break her, she used them to push herself harder.
Exactly. And it's more than willpower. It's about resourcefulness, adaptability, being willing to reach out for support when she needed it. Remember, she formed those strong bonds with other students, created a community that understood what she was going through, and celebrated her wins.
And that brings us to this really cool part of her story. Her decision to start tutoring underprivileged students while she was still in college herself. It's like she was paying it forward, even while she was working towards her own goals.
That's such a good point. It wasn't just a side gig for her. It was a reflection of her values, her commitment to lifting others up. It's like she was instinctively drawn to recreating that same kind of support system that was so crucial in her own life.
And wouldn't that have helped her solidify those skills she needed as a teacher? Practical experience woven right into her college journey.
Totally. It gave her a chance to apply what she was learning, to build confidence, to get a deeper understanding of the challenges students from similar backgrounds were facing.
It's amazing how everything in her story connects. Each experience builds on the last. She was determined to succeed, but also to lift others up along the way.
And that's really important to remember. Her story isn't just about individual achievement. It's about that ripple effect of education and mentorship. One person's success inspiring and empowering others, creating this chain reaction of positive change.
Okay, let's fast forward to Maria's graduation day. I can only imagine the mix of emotions there, the culmination of all that hard work, the sacrifices, overcoming all those obstacles.
It's easy to focus on the sense of accomplishment, the pride of achieving her dream. But I think there was also this profound sense of gratitude for everyone who supported her along the way.
Not just her victory, a collective one.
Exactly. It really speaks to the power of community, mentorship, belief in the potential of others.
And then she came full circle, back to her hometown to teach. What was the reaction like?
Oh, incredible. They welcomed her back like a local hero. This shining example of what's possible with hard work and determination. But it was more than symbolic. She brought with her this deep understanding of the challenges those local students were facing.
So it wasn't just about teaching the curriculum. She was a role model, a mentor, someone who truly got them.
Exactly. She embodied that idea that education can be a pathway to a brighter future. And just her being there in the community, it inspired countless students who might have doubted themselves.
Hearing all this about Maria's journey, it really connects to the bigger conversation about educational equity. It highlights how important it is to go beyond just providing access. We have to create supportive environments where students from all walks of life can truly thrive.
Couldn't agree more. Marie's journey shows us how vital comprehensive support systems are: mentorship, financial aid, resources that address social and emotional needs, fostering a sense of belonging.
And it's not just about individual success, right? It's about strengthening communities and breaking cycles of poverty.
Absolutely. Investing in education, it's investing in the future of our society as a whole.
And Maria's story proves that. Her success wasn't just personal. It was about giving back and creating opportunities for others. It's this beautiful cycle of empowerment.
It really is, and it reinforces the fact that education isn't just about acquiring knowledge. It's about unlocking potential, encouraging critical thinking, building a more just and equitable world.
Maria's story is inspiring, but it also makes me think about the challenges that still exist, the roadblocks other young people are facing right now trying to pursue an education.
That's an important question and one we should definitely dive into. Yeah. Maria's journey is inspiring, but it also makes you think about the challenges that still exist for so many others,
Yeah.
right?
What are some of those roadblocks, those barriers that other young people might be hitting on their path to education, maybe even right here in our own communities?
Well, unfortunately, it's a question with a lot of layers to it. The reality is access to quality education, it's not a level playing field. Socioeconomic factors, where you live, even systemic biases baked into the system itself, all these things can create real hurdles.
So it's not just about getting that chance, like Marie with the scholarship. It's everything that comes after, too. What are some specific examples, things that really highlight this?
Okay, imagine a student who they get accepted to college, fantastic, but they're from a low-income family. Maybe reliable transportation is a struggle every single day, which impacts their ability to get to class consistently. Or maybe they're dealing with food insecurity. Hard to focus on studies when you're not sure where your next meal is coming from.
It's easy to forget about those everyday challenges if you're not the one facing them.
Yeah.
They seem small, but the impact on a student's ability to succeed is huge.
Absolutely. And then you layer on things like access to healthcare, safe and affordable housing, even just having a quiet place to study at home. These factors, they can create a ripple effect that impacts their academic performance, mental health, their whole college experience.
And it can lead to a cycle, right? Students from disadvantaged backgrounds are less likely to graduate. That just perpetuates the inequalities we were talking about. It's almost like the system is working against itself.
That's a really sharp observation, and it leads to this big question. What can we do to actually break that cycle? How do we create more bridges, more hope, like the one Maria was able to cross?
Okay, let's get into solutions then. What can we do, even on a personal level? I mean, most of us aren't going to be handing out full scholarships, but there's got to be other ways to make a difference.
There are, absolutely. Supporting organizations that provide mentorship, tutoring, even just donating school supplies for students in need, things like that can have a huge impact.
Right. It reminds me of Mrs. Thompson and Maria's story. Sometimes all it takes is one person showing they believe in you.
Exactly. Sometimes that's all it takes. And I bet there are tons of organizations doing this kind of work right in our own backyards, places we don't even know about.
Maybe we don't realize the need is that close to home.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a huge commitment either. Volunteering a few hours a month at an after-school program, donating to a scholarship fund, even just talking to people about these issues, raising awareness within your own circle. Those little things can create real change.
But individual actions, while important, they can only go so far, right? Sounds like we need a bigger shift, systemic change.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. If you want to address the root causes of this educational inequity, we need larger scale solutions. We need to advocate for policies that address poverty discrimination, the lack of access to quality early childhood education. It's about building a system that provides equal opportunities for every student, regardless of their zip code or how much money their family has.
So things like supporting candidates who actually prioritize education, staying informed about legislation that impacts schools, and really holding our elected officials accountable for creating a more equitable system.
You got it. It's about using your voice,
Mm.
pushing for changes that benefit the entire community. And remember, when you invest in education, you're not just helping students, you're making society stronger as a whole. A more educated population that leads to a more informed citizenry, a better workforce, and ultimately a more vibrant and resilient society.
I mean, Maria's story is the perfect example of that, isn't it? Her success, it wasn't just about her personal fulfillment. It was about giving back, creating a ripple effect in her community, this amazing cycle of empowerment.
It really is. And it reinforces this idea that education, it's not just about absorbing facts, it's about unlocking potential, fostering critical thinking skills, creating a more just world for everybody.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Maria's incredible story, I'm curious, what's one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation? One action, big or small.
That's a good one. I'd say take a moment and just reflect on those barriers to education that exist right here in your own community. Maybe it's something you haven't really considered before. And then ask yourself, what's one thing I can do, even something small, to help bridge that gap, to create more opportunities for others? It could be volunteering, making a donation, talking to your friends and family about these issues, or even just staying informed and engaged. Every single action, no matter how small, makes a difference.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many people and organizations out there already working on this. Maria's story reminds us that change is possible. It starts with each one of us taking that first step, raising our voices, creating those ripples of hope that will eventually lead to a brighter future for everyone.
That's beautifully put. And never forget, everyone has a story. You never know whose life you might impact by simply extending a hand, offering support, or just believing in their potential.
And on that note, that wraps up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep searching for those stories of resilience and empowerment. They're out there, just waiting to be discovered.